Thanksgiving has always held a special place in my heart. There's a unique warmth in gathering around the table, swapping stories, and reconnecting with loved ones. My family, despite their quirks, shares a deep bond. But they have this annoying tendency to push their teasing too far. Usually I shrug it off, knowing their jabs come from a place of affection. They've always been this way, poking fun, testing limits, but they're family and I cherish them. This year, though, as I prepared for the holiday, a strange unease settled in my chest. The usual excitement was missing, replaced by a nagging feeling I couldn't pinpoint. I chalked it up to nerves. Family gatherings can be chaotic, but we always end up laughing by the end. The evening started smoothly enough. My sister, Emma, was in her usual boisterous mood, tossing out jokes left and right. She's always been the spark of any party. Dad sliced the turkey, Mom fussed over the side dishes, and we fell into the familiar flow of our family dinners. The early teasing about my marriage felt lighthearted, the kind I'd grown used to ignoring. Someone quipped about how I'd snagged a husband who outshone me in the kitchen, given his culinary background. He was always dragged into cooking duty at family events. I laughed it off, letting the comments slide. But as the night wore on, the jokes grew sharper. I was reaching for the mashed potatoes when Emma, with a sly grin, dropped her big zinger. She remarked that her son, Liam, had my husband's exact eyes. The room burst into laughter before I could process it. The sound swelled, loud and suffocating. I froze, my hands suspended over the dish, my cheeks burning. Liam does have striking, soulful eyes, but to liken them to my husband's. I couldn't believe she'd said it aloud, let alone that everyone found it hilarious. The laughter lingered, relentless. Mom chimed in, joking that maybe Liam had inherited more than just my husband's looks. That only fueled the uproar. I glanced at my husband, who stood in the kitchen doorway, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked uneasy, but I couldn't tell if he'd heard. I couldn't stay there. The laughter echoed in my ears as I pushed my chair back, the screech cutting through the noise. The room fell silent. I muttered something about needing air and stormed out, ignoring their calls. My husband shouted after me as I grabbed my coat, but he didn't follow. I felt his gaze as I stepped into the chilly November night, climbed into my car and drove off aimlessly, my hands clenched on the steering wheel. The moment replayed in my mind, Emma's smirk, the laughter, my husband's stillness. I tried to convince myself it was just a cruel joke, nothing more, but it felt heavier, like a truth I wasn't ready to face. When I got home, sleep eluded me. Emma's voice, that smirk, those words, they haunted me. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was letting a bad moment ruin a good night. But the knot in my chest wouldn't loosen. The next morning, I poured my heart out to my husband. I expected him to be outraged, to agree that Emma had crossed a line. Instead, he brushed it off, saying I was taking it too seriously, that it was just Emma being her usual self. He insisted they meant no harm, just their typical teasing. I stared at him, waiting for more, for him to stand up for me. He didn't. He called me oversensitive, said I shouldn't let one dumb comment ruin my day. His dismissal hit like a punch. It wasn't just his words, it was his tone, the way he avoided my eyes, the way he seemed more focused on deflecting than comforting me. For the first time, doubts crept in. Why hadn't he spoken up when Emma made the joke? Why did he look so nervous in the kitchen? Why did his reassurance feel so hollow? I tried to tell myself I was being irrational, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Am I blowing this out of proportion? Am I foolish for feeling this way? I need your perspective. Update 1: the days after Thanksgiving were a blur of dread. I couldn't shake the weight in my chest or the sting of my family's laughter. What lingered most wasn't the tasteless joke, it was my husband's reaction. His casual dismissal, as if I were imagining things, gnawed at me relentlessly. I tried to push it aside, to convince myself I was overanalyzing. But the more I dwelled on it, the more his response felt off, like he was hiding something. Then there was Emma, with her sly grin and that cutting remark. Alone, it was just crude humor. But paired with my husband's silence and discomfort, it twisted my insides. In the days that followed, old memories resurfaced, taking on a darker hue. There was the time Emma joked that she and my husband got along better than he and I ever could. I'd laughed it off then, attributing it to her over-the-top humor. Now it felt sinister. I recalled fleeting glances between them over the years, nothing overtly wrong, but moments that now seemed too intimate. Things I'd ignored before now loomed large. There was that Christmas when we played charades, and Emma and my husband were on the same team. They were unstoppable, reading each other's cues with an ease that felt almost personal. I'd felt sidelined but brushed it off as harmless fun. Now that memory suffocated me. Desperate for peace, I scoured old photos and social media posts, hoping to prove myself wrong. Instead, I found fuel for my fears. There they were, standing too close in picture after picture, Emma's hand on his shoulder in one, their shared laughter in another. Her captions, once innocent, now carried a strange edge. "Always a blast with my favorite brother-in-law," one read, punctuated with a winking emoji. My chest tightened with each discovery. It wasn't just the photos. I recalled Emma's offhand remarks, flirtatious in hindsight. Like the time she teased that if I ever slipped up, she'd gladly step in. We'd all laughed, me included. Now it felt like a betrayal. The weight of it all was crushing, and I couldn't keep it inside. One night, I confronted my husband. I tried to stay calm, but my hurt and fear spilled out. I asked about the jokes, the photos, whether Emma had ever crossed a line. He sighed, brushing it off, saying I was letting my imagination run wild. He insisted Emma was just being herself and that I was overreacting. When I pressed him about why he hadn't defended me at Thanksgiving or why he seemed so uneasy, he dismissed it, saying he didn't want to make a scene. So he had heard the joke but pretended otherwise the next day. His words sounded plausible, but his tone didn't. There was a subtle tension, a refusal to meet my gaze. I asked if he thought Emma's behavior was inappropriate, and he hesitated. That pause felt like a knife. He finally said no, that I needed to let it go. But his strained voice and averted eyes only deepened my unease. That night I lay awake, my mind spinning with possibilities. Was I paranoid? Was I reading too much into nothing? Or was my gut picking up on something real? I didn't know which scared me more, the thought that I was imagining it all or the possibility that I wasn't. Some of you say to dig deeper, others say it might not be a big deal but better to know than regret. I think you're right. I need to uncover the truth now or I'll drown in regret later. Update 2, the weeks that followed were suffocating. The unease that had festered since Thanksgiving grew into a dark, gnawing pain. I tried confronting my husband again, but each time he shut me down, calling me irrational, saying I needed to trust him. His words only widened the distance between us, making him feel like a stranger in our home. But something else kept nagging at me, financial irregularities. I'd noticed odd transfers from his account to Emma's over recent months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. When I asked, he claimed Emma was struggling financially and he was helping out. But it didn't add up. I knew Emma's situation. It wasn't desperate enough for those kinds of payments. I couldn't sit idly by anymore. I needed the truth, even if it shattered me. So I hired a private investigator. It was a reckless move, one that made my stomach churn, but I had to know. The investigator dug into every detail, transactions, communications, everything. I installed tracking software he provided on my husband's phone and laptop. Weeks later, the report arrived, and it broke me. It confirmed my worst fears. My husband and Emma had been having an affair for years. Worse, Liam, my nephew, was his child, not a fleeting mistake, but a product of their long betrayal. The evidence was undeniable. Photos of them together, intimate messages, and a paternity test, easily obtained with a few strands of hair. My hands shook as I read the report, the world I'd known crumbling. The pain was suffocating, a tidal wave of betrayal. My heart shattered as I realized the two people I trusted most had destroyed me. I thought back to the signs I'd ignored, the lingering touches, Emma's overly familiar laughter at his jokes. I'd seen it but refused to believe it. Now the truth was inescapable. It wasn't just the affair or the lies. It was Liam, the nephew I'd loved, now a living symbol of their deceit. I couldn't look at his photos without feeling sick. I'd been the doting aunt while my husband played father behind my back. I needed to talk to someone, so I called my closest friend who knew my family well. She was silent at first, then admitted she'd heard rumors about Emma and my husband for years. Whispers had circulated, but no one believed them, too outrageous, too painful. They always seemed too close, she said softly, but no one wanted to believe it. Her words broke me again. There had been gossip, and I'd been oblivious, living in a false bubble while my husband and sister tore my world apart. I hung up numb, my mind reeling. The betrayal wasn't just their actions. It was the years of lies, the facade of family. I couldn't stay in that house. The walls felt like they were closing in. I hated them. I needed to decide my next move. I wasn't going to let this slide. They would pay. Update 3, you were right. I had to confront them. I needed to know how they could be so vile. The day came, armed with evidence, photos, bank records, messages, and the paternity test. I arranged a meeting at my house, a neutral battleground. My hands trembled as I set the table, as if preparing for a dinner rather than a war. When the doorbell rang, my heart pounded, but I opened the door. There they stood, Emma with her bright, fake smile, my husband with his casual demeanor. But tension hung in the air, their unease palpable. They knew something was coming. I gestured for them to sit, and they did, exchanging nervous glances. I sat across from them, a calm rage simmering inside. I told them I knew everything. I slid the evidence across the table, photos, records, test results, like grenades. Their faces paled. My husband fidgeted, Emma looked like she might collapse. I paced the room, my voice steady but laced with fury. I started with the photos, moments I'd once dismissed, too close poses, shared smiles that now screamed betrayal. The intimate images needed no explanation. When I revealed the paternity test, the room seemed to shrink. They couldn't meet my eyes, I didn't wait for their excuses. I told them there was no more hiding, no more pretending. Their silence was deafening. My husband spoke first, his voice weak. He claimed it wasn't planned, just a mistake he couldn't stop. He said he'd tried to end it, but was too weak. I laughed bitterly. A mistake? For years, I told him to stop lying. He hadn't tried to stop anything. He'd chosen this. Emma was next, head bowed, tears streaming. She sobbed that she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me, that she was confused. I scoffed. Confused? For years, I called her out. A grown woman, not a clueless teen, making deliberate choices to betray me. Her apologies were hollow. I told her she destroyed my trust, my family, my life. For what? A reckless fling she let drag on. I called her pathetic, worse than someone who sells their dignity for money. Her sobs grew louder, but they didn't move me. The sister I loved was gone, replaced by a traitor. I turned to my husband, now crumbling. He mumbled about regret, about wanting to fix it. I cut him off. There was no fixing this. The trust was dead, and no words could revive it. I stood and left the room, leaving them with their guilt. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say. They'd taken everything from me. Update 4 the days after the confrontation were eerily silent. The pain and betrayal lingered, eating away at me. I thought of the years I'd poured into a marriage built on lies, of my sister, my own blood, who'd stabbed me in the back. I was done being the victim. The hurt, the shame, the rage, it was time to take control. I wanted them to pay to ensure they'd never forget their betrayal. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted their lives to unravel. I started with their careers. Using my community connections, I spread the truth anonymously. The photos of their intimacy, undeniable and damning, went viral on social media, tagged to their workplaces, friends, and family. The fallout was swift. My husband's company sacked him within days. His colleagues, who turned a blind eye to his affair, abandoned him. His career was dust. Emma's boutique crumbled just as fast. Her elite clients, once loyal, fled as the scandal spread. No one wanted to associate with her shame. She tried to play the victim, but the truth was too ugly. My other nephew, my cousin's son, took it further. Devastated by my pain, he told everyone at school that Liam was the product of an affair, that Emma had betrayed her sister for years. He even claimed Liam knew the truth and played innocent at my house. The gossip spread, turning into cruel taunts. Liam became a pariah, mocked relentlessly for his parents' sins. At first, I felt a pang of guilt. He was just a kid. But when I learned he'd known about the affair, about his father, and kept it secret, my sympathy vanished. He was complicit, a part of their betrayal. I felt nothing but cold resentment. The divorce was ruthless. My lawyer used the affair and the second paternity test to destroy my husband. I took everything, the house, the money, the accounts. He left with nothing but his guilt. But I wasn't done. My father, always the calm patriarch, finally snapped. When Emma begged for forgiveness, he slapped her in front of Liam, calling her his greatest regret. His voice shook with disgust. My mother stood silent, her loyalty clear. I was her daughter before Liam was her grandson. They were alone now, shunned by everyone. Their apologies fell on deaf ears. My family rallied behind me, cutting them off. The satisfaction of watching their lives collapse was enough. I didn't need their remorse or closure. Justice wasn't in forgiveness, it was in seeing them reap the consequences of their choices, and I made sure they did.